Hello, hello, hello. Right, give me a second. I just want to sort out. I want to see if this is coming through my proper microphone. Because last time I went live, I don't think it was. I think it was going through the. Hang on. No, it should be. Right. Say that. Let's give it. If you're watching this after the fact, just skip forward to about a minute's time, and then I'll start talking. Still haven't done an intro bit. Right. You know what? Let's just do it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Tottenham Hotspur. Looking forward to the weekend. I was looking forward to the weekend. I was really looking forward to the weekend. I still am. Do you know what? I still am. First home game of the season. Chance to right a few wrongs of the last game, the Leicester game. We're not allowed to say there were a few wrongs, are we? We get called purple and gold if you say anything remotely critical of that game. First game of the season. Didn't go to plan. Got Everton this weekend. And unfortunately, Ange Postecoglou, his press conference is going on at the moment, probably just finished. But Alistair Gold's been tweeting from it and has confirmed everybody's worst fears after he was absent from the training videos yesterday that Dominic Solanke will not be playing for Spurs this weekend. 38 games he played for Bournemouth last year in the Premier League. His second game wearing a Tottenham Hotspur football shirt, football jersey. Bit of translation there for any international listeners. And he's injured and he's out already. Seems to be more of a precautionary thing, if anything. But doesn't really help as much this weekend, does it? You would assume Richarlison starts, and we should be okay with that. The irritating thing about this is that Will Lankshear also got injured during the week. So we have no Will Lankshear on the bench. I know many of you think it's too early for him, but what is he, 18, 19? This is the sort of time where you need somebody like that, right? Sat there on the bench. But Dominic Solanke is out. Now, I'm sure over the next few days, there's going to be lots of conclusions drawn. I'm already drawing them in my head, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just what you do. You sort of jump to natural conclusions, don't you? But you can't help but sort of wonder why. As I say at the top there, Solanke, 38 games he played last season for Bournemouth, second game at Spurs, and he's injured already. We know that Ange's approach is intense, shall we say. But from what I understand, Iraola's is as well. He's got a similar sort of, interest in intensity and pressing, that sort of a thing, right? So why is it that it happens here? Why is it we're always getting bloody injured? Maybe it's just bad luck. But when something happens as consistently as it does for Spurs, you can't help but question why this may be happening. Is the soil in our training ground too hard? Are the type of boots, whatever it is, the Nike training wear that we're in? There's a lot of compression technology and all that, right? Maybe it's not. What did Bournemouth used to wear? Joma? Is it Joma? One of those random generic sports brands? Let's have a look. Bournemouth kit manufacturers. Umbro, which I think is actually illusion of choice, right? Wake up, sheeple, is actually a subsidiary of Nike nowadays, I believe. Sort of like one of those craft Cadbury's type affairs, isn't it? Those bloody Americans coming here buying all our heritage brands. Look, who knows why Solanke's injured? We can only deal in fact. He is injured. He's missing from this week's game. And that's kind of annoying, isn't it? That's not just kind of annoying. That's really very annoying. Really, really very annoying. Um, let's have a look what he said. Postecoglou has said, Dom picked up a knock in the last game. He got through the game, but it flared up the day after, and he'll miss the game tomorrow. It's an ankle injury. He copped it really early on. Somebody went across his ankle. It depends on his recovery when he returns. Obviously, we've got the international break, but it's not serious. Oh, I forgot about bloody international break as well. Couldn't make this worse. I don't know. Should we deal with this sort of play it by ear? Do you know what I mean? Because we've heard this before plenty of times, haven't we? We've heard many times before that that a player's only going to be out for a short amount of time, and then they're out for a month, 2 months, something like that. Who knows with Spurs? I've been getting in trouble lately. I was literally, you could see if anyone's watching this, you could see I was literally biting my lip. But I've got to say it. I get in trouble for saying anything that is perceived to be negative about Ange, or in any way questioning, or in any way not even skeptical of him, just questioning any any narrative that isn't completely shining a positive light upon him. I found it quite concerning at the end of that Leicester game, seeing Pedro Porro hobbling about the pitch and having Ange sort of bawling and shouting at him from the sidelines to play on, to man up, or I don't think he used those words. That's just me chucking those words in. To do that sort of thing. And it makes me wonder if we've had a similar thing with Dominic Solanke. If he said, boss, I'm not feeling great, half time, you got to play on. I don't know. It's me filling the gaps, isn't it? It's me filling the gaps. I'm going to get in trouble again. In trouble with who? In trouble with who? I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? It's really, I'm going around in a circle. I know this, but this is, it's live. I've just seen that news that it's live, and it's really, really disappointing because obviously Solanke is a big money signing. Obviously, we want to see him hit the ground running. We want to see him start scoring goals. First home game of the season. It would have been great to see the new big money signing rolled out after a few. His performance against Leicester was seemingly quite marmite. I thought he was decent. I don't think he got any clear-cut opportunities put on a plate for him. He made a few opportunities for himself with some, pretty kind of canny work and stuff around the box. I liked what I saw about him. I thought he was occupying Leicester, keeping them busy, keeping them on their toes, moving into space nicely, always making himself available. He's big, he's quick, smart, good. I like the look of him. It's just we want to see him hit the ground running, right? We don't want this to turn into another one of the, Vincent Janssen or something like that we've seen in the past, Soldado. But the lesser fear than that about him just as an individual is the fact that we signed him because we needed him. We need a player like that in the team. And if Richarlison's fit, good. Will he start? I don't know. Will Kulusevski start? We've seen Kulusevski play that position pre-season, haven't we? Gabriel number 1 has said in the comments here, Kulusevski number 9. Could well be, couldn't it? Could well be. It's just it's bad for the team, and it's bad for Solanke. It's annoying to see his Spurs career already, the early part of it, already be curtailed with an injury. It's just so bloody frustrating that we had this last year with Maddison, didn't we? An exciting new signing, an exciting new player that's here to kick us on another level, and they go missing straight away. Not go missing, not through their poor play. I'm not saying it as a criticism, as in they get injured, so we can't use them, and we can't see how much better a side we could be with a player in there that we need. He did. So we have got Wankshear, Will Lankshear. That's a bit of a Jeremy Hunt, that, wasn't it? Will Lankshear went off with a hamstring injury. Hamstring. That's really annoying. Yeah, he'll be out for a bit of time, won't he? In other team news, Postecoglou says Richarlison is fit to start if required. If required, I mean, does that mean he wants to start Kulusevski? Maybe. Pedro Porro is fine, good. Rodrigo Bentancur's out because of the concussion protocol. I didn't even realize, I didn't even know that this was a thing. I didn't understand fully what it was. So, I was talking to some people about this on Blue Sky the other day, and it was kind of obviously Bentancur will be out. And I was like, why? I sort of made myself look a bit silly, didn't I? Because it's all concussion protocol, obviously. Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. I am the silly one. I'll concede that in this instance, but only in this instance, only in this very, very fine instance. So Bentancur is out. Ange said of Bentancur, he bounced back well, but we'll take our time with Rodrigo. So that does beg the question, because this was part of a conversation as to who will start with Bentancur out. It seemed to be a few of the people I was speaking to thought Bissouma would drop back in almost immediately. And I had to be a contrarian there, because I was like, I'm not so sure he will. I'm not so sure he will. I thought Ange he gave him both barrels at the start of the season because of the laughing gas stuff, talking about building trust back up and all this type of thing. I mean, it may just have been that the timing with Bentancur's injury has done Biss a favour, but I kind of feel like Ange isn't going to bend to that type of thing. Who is going to start in that midfielder? I mean, he said of Bissouma going into this game, Biss is available, but we've got some options there. The whole idea of trying to bulk up the squad is for these situations. He's available for selection, but the bridge building continues. That is a pretty heavy implication that he won't be starting for me, but we can see. The news coming out of Spurs this week that Archie Gray and Lucas Berrywal. Did you see the video, Spurs? Tangent again, I know, but Spurs did a video where they got all the players to pronounce their names. And Lucas Bergvall, as I've been calling him, as most have been calling him, or Baywal, as I'd also got told he was called, is Berrywal. Are we going to call him that, or are we going to call him Bergvall? Probably Bergvall. But Lucas Bergvall, it just sounds weird, doesn't it? It just sounds pretentious. And I get it. I get what people say. I saw somebody go a bit far. Somebody go a bit far off the deep end on X the other day, being like, if you can't be bothered to pronounce, a player's name properly, it just means you're like racist or whatever. And I was like, I don't think it's as much as that. Like, regionalities, different countries, they have their own way of like approaching words, of approaching language. They say things differently. And I get the point. The point is probably you can try a bit harder. We can all try a bit harder to maybe pronounce something in the way that it's, intended. But there's something about just saying Berryval that just makes me feel like I'm being pretentious. I said it last week. I said it in the post-match thing. It's like saying, somebody asking me, "Oh, where are you and the missus going for your anniversary?" Oh, we just thought we'd go to Paris. Like, come on. But Lucas Berryval looked class. Archie Gray looks class. And we've been told the news coming out of Spurs this week is that the two of them have made such an impression. These two 18-year-old whippersnappers have made such an impression that Spurs actually don't think they're going to need a number 6. They don't think they're going to need that all-action midfielder, that João Gomez that we've been linked to so much, that Ilkay Gundogan. No, he's a number 8 or whatever before people start going on about that. that I was clamouring for. He's gone back to Manchester City anyway. Good, didn't want him. But it seems like these two young lads are good to start. So what do we expect to see this weekend with Bentancur out? You would assume Sarr, Gray or Berryval, and Maddison, right? Is that what it's going to be? I would guess. I would guess that it's that. I mean, that's not really. I mean, I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be Berryval. I thought it was going to be. I keep saying it. I just feel ridiculous saying it. I'm sorry. I have to go back to. I just feel ridiculous. Berryval. Come on, grow up. It's a G. Um, when I think about that Leicester game, he looked really, really good. Like really good. Always wanting to get on the ball. Didn't shirk. Didn't hide from possession. Very, very clean. Very nice technique. Knocking the ball about, trapping the ball. Looks like a super talented player, doesn't he? He looks absolutely fantastic. Archie Gray, supposed to be all these things. That's brilliant. I didn't see as much of that from him. I didn't see maybe as much of that aura, that confidence. But perhaps that's because of the position he was playing in the pitch. Maybe that's because we were pressing, we were keeping Leicester pegged back in their half, and it allowed somebody like Berryval to show his stuff, to do what he does best. Maybe it's because it was built on the foundation of having somebody like Archie Gray there doing the sort of the hard work, and maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what we need in the midfield alongside Sarr. Somebody who is more. I mean, is he technically a number 6, or is he still finding out his own position? Really, really, and be truthful here. Be truthful here. Don't just try and be a football intellectual to make me, the pub philosopher, look silly. Don't just say, "Of course, Archie Gray's a number 6," because I'm pretty sure he said in an interview that he's still trying to find out his best position as well. That he has played in more advanced positions in midfield. He's played as a right fullback. He's played all over the pitch. He's played in various different ways and what have you. So, but maybe it is him at number 6. Maybe it is. Hacker BLCPS says Gray CDM IMO. Could be that. Could be that. Probably is, right? Because it feels like really he will be best suited to that, won't he? Alongside Sarr, who you're going to have as the all-action midfielder. Is Sarr a number 8? I don't know, but I really like him. Again, a really weirdly Marmite player, Sarr seems to be, but I think he's absolutely fantastic. So we've had that. Let's Ange Postecoglou has spoken about Wilson Odobert, and it's a pretty lengthy passage. So join me as I take you through the mind of Ange Postecoglou. We went through the same sort of processes. He's one that we identified really early on in summer. It's no secret that we were looking for a wide player, and Wilson was one of the ones we highlighted. We had to go through certain steps to get these things done. They're not as straightforward as saying, that's who we want, go and get them. Obviously, in getting Big Dom, but obviously getting Big Dom in was very important for us. We spent a lot of time working on that deal. But once Dom was done, it's a lovely. What's the cellar door? It's that thing. Dom was done. There was one target, and that was Wilson, and that happened really quickly. I really like the way he plays in the wide areas. He's different to our other wingers. He's a dribbler. He likes to get into the front third. He can play either side. He can play central. He's had a really good development if you look at his trajectory from PSG as a youngster to Troyes playing in League One and France and the Premier League and Premier League football before the age of 19. I think he ticked all the boxes for us. and he's a fantastic young bloke as well. So really happy to get him in. With all the players we signed, I think irrespective of age, we're signing them because we think they can make an impact. I certainly see that with Wilson. He's a year older than Archie and Lucas, and they've already made an impact. We sign players because we're still in that stage of building a team. I won't bring players here who I don't think can meaningfully contribute to us in the short term, and Wilson definitely will. So, I mean, he's essentially saying, yeah, he thinks Wilson Odobert's really good. Does that mean he's going to start this weekend? I don't think so. I know a lot of people are clamoring for that, right? But I don't think he's going to start. Is he? I can't see that myself. I think Johnson is he's one of Ange's boys. Johnson is obviously somebody that Ange is working on and working with, and he's not going to drop him. I don't think anyway. I can't see him dropping him. But Odobert will be there at least. Maybe he'll come in the second half. One thing I really do, not one thing, but one of the things I really like about Ange is that he does bring these young players in. You do see, he brought in Berryville and Gray at what about the 60th minute or something like that? I want to say against Leicester, quite early on into the second half. 1-1 as well away from home. Tricky game, tricky place to go, as Dan used to say in the away days videos. I don't know. Ange has also spoken about any transfer business still to be done. He says, look, probably a couple more will go out. We've done a fair bit of work over the last 12 months in terms of the squad. As much as the focus has been on getting guys in, we've changed the squad a fair bit, brought down the demographic a fair way. We've brought in footballers who are better suited to the football we want to play moving forwards. So there has been a lot of work done in the area from our perspective, but with a week to go, there is still a little bit to do. I mean, the fact he explicitly said a couple of players out, I guess that probably means Manos Solomon and Gio Lo Celso. That's going to be my bingo card for the two who are on the way out, right? I think that's a fair assumption. If we can get them out, maybe on loan. It seems to be that we're actually kind of more focused on getting players out on a permanent basis. But if we can get those two out, will we bring anyone else in? I don't know. It seems to be all quiet on the sort of ITK thing at the moment. The fact that we said we're not either, the club have leaked through whoever that we're not looking to bring in a midfielder anymore. Does make me ponder. I've seen us linked with what's his name, Christensen, that old Chelsea player is now at Barcelona because they can't pay anyone anymore. I've seen us linked with him for a bit. Ashley Phillips is seemingly on his way out on a loan again. So we clearly don't think he's in a place to really add value to the squad at the moment, which is, again, something of a shame, isn't it? We were sort of all pretty excited about him when we first signed him. There's a lot of talk about him being the sort of profile for an Ange Postecoglou team, that he's going to come in and make an impact almost immediately. And that hasn't been the case so far. But he's still a young player. That's what I'm saying. I think just the fact that he is going back out on loan again probably suggests that he's quite some way off being ready. Because I don't think Ange is afraid to play these young guys, right? I don't think he is at all. So, yeah, it's going to be some time. We got Vuskovic as well, haven't we, out on loan, the really young lad. And don't forget, we've got him always in the background coming, who looks immense. Let's have a look at some of these comments we've had in. William Gardner, hello mate, how you doing? Game 2, 3 injuries, one of which was never injured at all last season. This club is something else. Yeah. Hacker BLCPS says, weird that both Lankshear and Solanke are out at the same time. Squeaky bum time already. A little bit, isn't it? Juice Nuts says of my Bergval issue, just say Bergie for short. Yeah, could be an idea. Adam Phillips says nobody says Forster. People just say Foster instead. Yeah, that's probably true, isn't it? I already said Gray CDM IMO. True says Everton have 14 players. Spurs will win 5-0. Yeah. Let's hope so. Ben Skinner, sorry, just joining. So not sure if you've already discussed, but is Richie nailed on to start now, do you think? Great pod, man. Thank you. Cheers, Ben. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate that. I have sort of spoken about that, and it's up in the air, isn't it? You would imagine that Richie is nailed on to start, but we did see Kulusevski play a lot of football at number 9 in pre-season. I can't remember who it was who said it, but somebody got arsey with me on Twitter the other day saying pre-season means absolutely nothing, which I think you can sort of break down in various different ways, can't you? You can look at the many different faces of that statement and probably come up with the conclusion that they're all wrong. But yeah. Ben's added, I thought he looked sketchy and would personally have gone for Kulu as a false 9 and start with Bergval with Madders as 2 10s. Interesting. But is that without Bentancur there, mate? Are we going to have enough control in midfield there? Could do. Don't know. Seymour Shepherdson. Gray should fly to Spain and train with Busquets a couple of times a month. Yeah, but then he'd probably end up signing for Barcelona, mate. So, don't really want that. I don't want to see him do that. And then he says not really, but doesn't mean he couldn't be as good. Yeah, mate. But I mean, like anybody, maybe you Seymour could be as good as Busquets if you put your mind to it, right? Power of the human mind over matter, right? That sort of thing, something like that. We do all that kind of thing. We put all these limits on ourselves. I've been watching. I know I'm way late to it and everything. I've been watching Westworld lately. I've just finally sort of dug into it. There's an interesting little bit in there when Anthony Hopkins is talking to one of the robots, the hosts, isn't it? They call them. And the robots kind of pondering their place in all of this. I'm just a machine. I have no autonomy. I'm just told what to do. I just operate in little loops. And Anthony Hopkins' character, who's like the kind of engineer, the creator of all these androids, these highly sophisticated AIs, is basically, but that's what human beings do as well, don't they? That's what we do. Do we impose limits on ourselves, or does somebody else impose limits on us? Are they already in there? Do you find when you get to the end of if you're on like a nice holiday, a nice break, maybe even not like a city break, but I'm talking about when you go on holiday for like 2 weeks, 2 and a bit weeks. Am I the only one at towards the end of those sort of weeks starts to get a bit itchy for my routine? Even if you're in paradise, you're loving it, by the sea and whatever, you're in a lovely hotel, you don't have to worry about everything. There's still that little bit of you that's like, why is it that I'm craving the mundanity, the little loops of my routine, of my existence? These are the boundaries that we place on ourselves, Seymour, right? And you sat there talking about somebody trying to be Busquets or not. Have you thought about whether or not you can be Busquets? That's what I put to you. Okay. Are we a bit worried? Can we so let's talk about Everton, because are we a bit worried about Everton? We shouldn't be, because they were utterly abysmal. Who did they get done by? I want to say it was Brentford. Was it Brentford that did them at Goodison Park? First game of the season, 2 or 3-0. And I know everything on paper should say that we shouldn't be worried about Everton. But I'm not even. The thing is, I'm not even doing it in that like Spurs fans are pessimistic way. I'm not leaning into any sort of sense of Spurs fan pessimism. I'm more leaning into Sean Dyche and his highly combative style of play, while we are missing perhaps a more combative element into our midfield. Could we get a bit bullied in this one? We've seen our susceptibility from set pieces, from aerial set pieces, no less. This is like bread and butter for Sean Dyche and for Sean Dyche teams. You can be sure as hell, the videos he's been showing the Everton team this week are those goals we conceded in pre-season from the corners or from crosses, those headed goals across goal that, Bayern's second goal at our stadium. I know it's Bayern Munich and I know it's Everton, but still, it was a shambles, absolute shambles of a goal. Probably be showing them a few of the goals that we conceded last year as well and saying, look, mop up, eat good, boys, because we can have these lot in these situations. And that does worry me a little bit. The more positive side is, I think we are way better than Everton. We got way better players than them. We do actually try to play football. We do struggle against low block teams, but we tend to kind of... Do we, though? I was going to say we tend to maybe get the better of them, but I don't know if that's strictly true. It's a tough one. Let's have a look at our previous meetings. We have played in all competitions. We've played Everton 174 times. We've beaten them 66 times. 66 of those 174 times. They've beaten us 50 times. We've drawn 58 times. Our previous fixtures going into this, in February, obviously there was the 2-2 away at Goodison. We beat them 2-1 in December, and then we drew 1-1 last season, or the season before that, I guess, at Goodison. A few match facts going into this one are that Tottenham have scored more Premier League goals against Everton, both overall 102 and at home 63, than they have against any other opponent. It's quite interesting. Everton have won just one of their last 23 Premier League games against Tottenham. They've drawn 11 and lost 11. It was a 1-0 win in September 2020 under Carlo Ancelotti. That was was that the first game of the season? It was either the first game of the season or the first game back from the lockdown break. Can anyone in the comments remind me of that? I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. It was one or the other, wasn't it? It was either the first game of the season after Liverpool had just won it, or it was the first game back after the lockdown break. I think it was the first game of the season. I'm going to go with first game of the season. I'll see if anyone gets back to me on that one. Everton have won just 3 of their last 20 Premier League away games against London sides. Drawn 6, lost 11. With those 3 wins all coming consecutively between September and November last season. Everton haven't won a Premier League game in the month of August in any of the last 3 seasons. Drawn 3, lost 6. Losing each of their last 4 such games without scoring. Their last such victory was in 2021 at Brighton, where they won 2-0. Tottenham have won their first Premier League home match in 5 of the last 6 seasons. Yes, here we go. With the only exception being a 1-0 defeat to Everton in the 2020-21 season. Everton lost their opening Premier League match against Brighton and started both the 22-23 and 23-24 campaigns with consecutive defeats. The only team to lose their opening 2 games in 3 consecutive Premier League campaigns, not including those who suffered relegation in between, are Bournemouth. I don't care about that. After winning 4 consecutive Premier League away games between October and December last season, Everton are now winless in their last 11 on the road. Drawn 4, lost 7. 9 of those have come in 2024, leaving the Toffees as the only ever-present side over the 2 campaigns without an away win this calendar year. Wow. Tottenham drew 1-1 with Leicester in their opening Premier League match of the 24-25, blah, blah, blah. Against no side does Tottenham midfielder James Maddison have more Premier League assists than he does against Everton, 4, with each of his 4 against the Toffees coming in his last 3 appearances. Since joining Tottenham from Everton in 2022, Richarlison has scored 3 Premier League goals against the Toffees, with all 3 coming in last season's 2 meetings. 2 really good goals as well he scored, I remember at Goodison. Of the players to have previously played for Everton in the competition, only Wayne Rooney, 4, has scored more against them than the Brazilian. It's quite a weird one, isn't it? It's quite a weird fixture, this. 2, historically speaking, evenly matched teams. For the most part of the Premier League, we were always pretty similarly matched, similarly sized teams. But I do think the last decade we've really, I mean, obviously we've really overtaken Everton. Really left them in a bit of a shadow, to be honest. So let's hope that continues. You kind of feel like this might be the year they go down, because they're not. They've been clinging on by the skin of their teeth the past few seasons. And if they went down just ahead of opening up a new stadium, I mean, that's an absolute catastrophe for a minute. I don't know. Day Kim here, the comments says, feel like Ange needs to adapt to a 3-2-5 in possession structure. City and Arsenal do it as well. Back 3 with Dragusin. Fullbacks stay in midfield, offensive 8s and 10s instead of a 6 and a defensive 8. I mean, that sounds nice, doesn't it? It sounds nice to be able to try and get Dragusin in as well into the mix, because he feels like a really good player. Although I don't know. I still have a nagging feeling about Dragusin that he might not actually be that good. But Dakim says that would fix our defensive issues, i.e. back post crosses, set pieces, counters with just Romero and Van de Ven in defence with our fullbacks and 8s up the pitch. Could be right. Cooper Hadlow says first game of the season, second game was Southampton 5-2, I think. Is that the one when Sonny scored 4 goals? Didn't he score 4 goals? And then Mourinho did that. Well done. He like jumped in on Son's post-match interview, didn't he? So well done, but the man in the match was Harry Kane. And you just think, shut up. Shut up. Leave him alone. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm not so sure. Can I see if I can find any Everton team news? Let's see if we can find something here on Everton. Dyche down to 14 recognised players for Spurs game. Everton manager Sean Dyche faces an early season selection crisis after saying he's down to around 14 recognised first team players for a trip to Tottenham. Injuries and suspension mean Dyche has no established right back to call upon. The Blues have been linked with a move for Kieran Trippier, who wants to leave Newcastle. Oh. We're stretched, unfortunately, said Dyche. We're down to around 14 recognised. I mean, we just said that. It's not perfect. The challenge is right in front of us, as always. I mean, look, this is catastrophizing, but there's always that part of you, isn't there? It's like 14 recognised. So is this when they call up a hometown hero? You know what I mean? Someone that makes a name for themselves for the day. Maybe he does. I didn't realise that. I was just looking at this. I didn't realise that Trippier wasn't actually really getting football at Newcastle anymore. And apparently Yeah, an unused substitute against Southampton on Saturday. Seems to have fallen out of favour there. So we don't need to talk about Trippier to Everton, do we? I mean, Everton, dire straits, aren't they? It's just, I mean, do we need to worry about them? I don't know. I don't think so. Cook past Tim says, yeah, Everton looks screwed. Classic meme. It sort of is that, isn't it, mate? Right? We've been here before. That's why I kind of got a bit of trepidation around this one. And what does that mean? What does that, let's stay on that point. What does that look like for Spurs, right? Told Leicester is first game of the season, doesn't really matter. Some people would argue it's a continuation of what we saw at the tail end of last year. Some people say it's a clean slate and pretend that the first game of the season exists in pure isolation. Somewhere in between those, probably veer more towards slightly concerned that in Leicester we saw similar bad behaviour that we saw at the tail end of last season, should we say? Right. But I'm not all, don't worry, I'm not all purple and gold on it. I'm not screaming and shouting about Ange being, a waste man and everything like that, right? But what does it look like if we draw Everton? St James's Park after this. Well, we're going to get our annual batter in there. Then we got the North London derby after that. What if we're looking at 2 points after those first 4 games? Does that start to snowball from there? And what is that indicative of? Is that just indicative of what we keep hearing, that we're in the start of an early project? Fans need to have bottle for this. It's his second season at the end of the day, right? And I don't think you can just combat anyone's concerns by saying they haven't got bottle or they're looking to be miserable. I don't. Maybe that. I think there are a few kind of misery mongers out there, right? There are. You can see them, and you know exactly the type of accounts they are, and they're the type of accounts that say people like Dan Kilpatrick or whatever is like a paid shill for Enoch and all that type of thing. But when do we? I don't know. When do we have to start to kind of think? But what's the solution? What do we do otherwise? I don't want to sack Ange. I don't want to get rid of him. I don't want to go through all that again. I mean, Iraola does look like he could do a job for Spurs with some of the players that we have, but we can't be always thinking about the next appointment, right? We can't always be thinking, well, this isn't quite working out. And I kind of get this is maybe what the whole bottle thing's about, but really, in truth, I think the fans have very little to do with a manager's fate at the end of the day. Number one, the fate is more often than not in the manager's own hands. It's up to them to do what they do, right? And number two, there's literally a multi-billion pound sports investment company that runs the club who have far more say over it than somebody moaning on Twitter or moaning on their podcast about something. And I know that this doesn't tell the true story, because I know that sometimes fan disenchantment and everything, it does filter down. It filters down to the pitch, and players say the aura around the thing, the noise on the match day, all this type of thing, it does bleed into what people are doing. But it's still going to be booming. It's going to be booming on the weekend, first home game of the season. I don't think people are going to be in open revolt for Ange to be out. Somebody said to me on Twitter when I was sort of talking on this theme, they were like, "Whoa, happened for Nuno Espirito Santo, didn't it?" But that to me that's a completely aberrative situation, because it was, look, with all due respect, I think we all know that the Nuno appointment was pretty farcical from start to finish. His whole tenure was farcical. It was shocking. It was so bad. So I would say prior to that, I don't think we even really saw that with Conte at any point. I don't think we saw that. Well, we didn't see it with Mourinho because it was all behind closed doors. But even when it was death knell with Poch, we didn't see this kind of open revolt thing. And obviously the club will pick up on fan sentiment. do look at, as so I've been told, they do look at social media. They do look at social media sentiment, but I still think it takes a lot for. Look, let's flip this on its head. I would say 70% of the fan base felt vocally warm to the idea of Pochettino coming back the summer we brought Ange back. There were people clamoring for it in the stadium, people singing, "Oh, he's magic," at kind of, tail end of the season games and preseason games, things like that. That was being sung. I remember looking on Twitter, on X, most posts from Spurs officials account would be responded to by people doing Pochettino gifs, the one of him winking and all this type of thing, or pictures of Pochettino, him on the grill, him on the kind of the jet ski, all those type of things, right? Did they rehire Pochettino? No, they didn't. So this kind of idea that, well, if you've got Spurs fans moaning about Ange Postecoglou, them not having the bottle, that means the club aren't going to stick with him. I just don't think that's strictly true. I think it's disingenuous. And I think it's one of these sort of narratives that's put forward for people to intellectually grandstand over other fans. I've got the bottle for this. You don't. I'm more of a fan than you are. I find this stuff, it's all quite tedious. And people do it from the other side. Don't get me wrong. I complain about them as well. People say, look at you looking for the positives in this. You're some Levy shill. You're this, you're that. You're a melt. You haven't got the winning mentality. I just think, like with most things in life, really, to be honest, yes, look, every day you log in, you see people going millennials or Gen Z or whatever. Millennials do this, Gen Z do that. Right? Do you know what I mean? This stuff is all just invented to keep us divided, right? I'm not going to go too kumbaya about it. But it's stupid. All right, yeah, we've all got our quirks, generational quirks and stuff. We take a piss out of each other a bit about them, right? But at the end of the day, don't need to be as divided about this. And the fan base doesn't need to be divided just because they have minor differences of opinion on how a manager copes with certain situations or how he conducts himself. You're this type of fan and you're that type of fan. And because you're that type of fan, it means that this is going to happen with the club. More often than not, the truth of the matter is the clubs that spend the most, and this is included because I've seen a lot of people saying Spurs have spent the most since and just come in. I always defer back to go and look at wages. Go and look at who's spending the most on wages. Clubs that spend the most on wages, generally speaking, it all comes quite orderly. It's all usually quite neat and quite nice. The league table generally always correlates with the wage budget table, right? Generally speaking, it does. And Spurs usually are fourth or fifth in that. And hence we sit here, right? And this is usually the truth of the matter. It's money. It's what this game is all about now. We might have the odd aberrative season where something like Leicester happens, like this wild season where something like that happens. But how many times has that ever happened in the Premier League? Right? Most of the time, the Premier League has always been won by Man United, Arsenal, or Chelsea, for the most part, right? Even Liverpool has been an aberration. Even Liverpool winning the Premier League has been an aberration, which is so crazy to say. And it doesn't paint a full picture. Manchester City have come along. Manchester City have come along and combined with Pep Guardiola and become this behemoth of football, right? And that did stop Liverpool from winning it 3-4 times. However many times we think they probably could have won it under Klopp. A lot. And they should have done. 99 points. They got 99 points and lost one game. And they didn't win the league. Come on. I've said that so many times on here, but it's just so crazy. And I know we're all losing our asses here, being like, why can't Tottenham win the league? Why can't we win the league? And you hear things like that. You're like, come on. Like, we've got to have some understanding as to why this sort of thing doesn't happen, right? But look, for the most part, right, ENIC, I've said this at the start of the season. ENIC, Levy, whoever, right? It did start to fall to pieces. We saw that. The end of the Conte reign. So Nuno Espirito Santo was chaos. Conte, even getting him in, and then his tenure and the aftermath of it was chaos. And it really felt like we were in serious trouble. Felt like we were in serious trouble as a club. And to give him his dues, Daniel Levy took a step back, brought in a footballing infrastructure of football people, football, proper football men to do all the football stuff, to make all those sort of decisions. And it feels like we are starting to move towards a sense of coherency. We're signing players to a blueprint. We have a blueprint as to how we want the club to play. Men's team, women's team, youth teams. They're all playing to this kind of set way. Ange Postecoglou can plug into that because he plays that type of football. People keep talking about Iraola because he could plug into that in theory, right? And that's what we have now. And that's great. That's fantastic. So credit where it's due with that. However, we have had enough kind of material as well in the past to be somewhat skeptical of Enoch, of Levy, of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club and the way they handle certain crunch situations. So, you know, I kind of think it is what it is. On some of this, Cooper Haddo says Arsenal were pretty bad for the first 3 years of Arteta. Their best finish was 8th, I think, early days. Again, I said this to Spooky on Spooky's pod. I was on Filthy Shambles. Give it a listen if you've not heard it before. Spooky, GOAT Tottenham blogger, GOAT Tottenham podcaster. Many of us. He is we are the disciples to his Pep Guardiola, most Tottenham podcasters nowadays. I'm not just saying that because they are both, I don't think it's the cleanest comparison because Arteta was a brand new young manager taking his first job. Ange Postecoglou, so we're always told, is a winner. I know he's had some work to do, but still, he is a winner. He said himself many times, I win stuff in my second season. He said himself that he doesn't stick around at clubs for a long time. So do we have the same kind of roadmap ahead of us as Arsenal had with Arteta? I don't think so. I don't think it's the cleanest comparison, but I kind of get the point in principle to a degree. Phil Mayo says, the fixation on results over process is fatally myopic. It's year 2 of 5. I'm just willing to let it ride. Yes and no. Again, like, I mean, I don't agree fully, Phil, because it's a results business, isn't it? At the end of the day, like, are we going to have? Are we going to process our way into the championship? And you're all right with that? Results do matter. You can't. I don't think you can just say as like upfront as that, like a fixation on results. It's myopic. I don't think so. We are in the second year now. It's not the first season. So how long do we focus on process per se, and how long is it before we're allowed to say, oh, it's a bit concerning that we haven't picked up any points after, or we've picked up 2 points after 4 or 5 games, right? I don't know. We'll see. Oh, here we go. Bill G. Jack, you've turned into a massive whinger of late. Feel like the pods from the last month have all been a bit doom and gloom. Fine if you want to say that. But I still feel that there's plenty of balance here, mate. And what's the doom and gloom per se that I've put out today? I don't think there's been anything that's been particularly doom and gloom. I've not said that Ange is useless, Ange is rubbish, or anything like that. I think if you just want to stay in a kind of bubble where you're like it's all perfect, and anybody that says that Spurs can't be concerned by anything at all is negative, then fine, you do that, mate. I just think I'm allowed to have an opinion on Spurs, and I voice it here. But you're always free to not listen, mate. It's up to you entirely. William Garner says, it was good discussion on Spooky's pod. Cheers. Although, do you know what? Spooky kept trying to, but he was sneaky. He kept trying to bait me into saying stuff that, you know, whatever. Listen to it. Listen to Filthy Shambles. It's good. Look, I'm not going to sit here and start bickering with people sending in comments. Bill is perfectly entitled to his opinion, as I am to mine. You know, I just think sometimes we just got to give one another a break and just realize that what happens on the pitch generally has very little to do with us. And I don't think it really does us any favors to bicker and to sort of tear each other down, to be honest. Spurs are going to do what Spurs are going to do. And if we turn the corner under Ange, and if we start winning all of the things that we've been promised, we can win under him potentially with this process and everything. Absolutely fantastic. Great. It's the best way to do it. It's the purest way to do it. It's the cleanest way to do it, right? Young players all playing to it. It's what we had under Martin Jol, which spanned out into the Harry Redknapp era, which then spanned out into, well, a bit of chaos, didn't it? But then the Maurizio Pochettino era. But it's always the nicest, it's always the purest experience when you see young players and players who aren't superstars, if you like, becoming superstars. It's what you always want to see. You don't want to be hit with the tag that you just bought the title. And it would be just so hideous for maybe the first bit of success that Tottenham get in a very long time now to be in any way tarnished with this idea of it being somehow, that we bought a title. I mean, even if we do sign a few superstars, our money is pretty much all self-sustained income nowadays, right? So we kind of almost have earned the right to spend a bit of dosh. I don't know. Who decides that? So look, we'll see. We've got Everton at the weekend. Good chance to get us doing a kind of, get us on the right track, to put us in good stead going into the game away against St James's Park. Let's hope we can, because it's not been a pleasant place to play the past few years, and let's make a change to that. Let's make a change to that. Thanks everybody anyway for listening. Thanks everybody for tuning in. RTR pod, RTR, I can't remember what it is, patreon.com/RTR pod. If you do want more stuff throughout the week, we'll be back after the game. Drop it a like, drop it a subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review, all that type of thing. Much love. Come on, you Spurs. Enjoy the game tomorrow if you can. Please, Tottenham. Please.